Married at First Sight, Season 14, Episode 10. And this video is for Steve Noi. I do separate videos for all the various couples. And so if you watch this video to the end, there'll be a picture you can click on and watch the next video. Otherwise, there'll be like little bitty blurbs at the top of the video. You can click on to the next video. But this is for Steve and Noi. So first of all, the episode opens up with talking about that they're on day 21 or day 22 of their marriage. And Steve and Noi start talking. I'm going to tell you something. There is something about Noi that I'm starting to realize there's a lot of contradictions in her personalities. Now, in all the other videos this week, I've been doing deep dives into some of the personalities of the various people, if you've been checking out my other videos. But when it comes to Noi, I'm starting to find some contradictions in Noi. And let me tell you the ones I found in this episode. But to go back, I remember my first contradiction was when Noi talked about herself being adventurous. But then I found out she didn't like any of those adventurous sports. She didn't like water sports. She didn't like heights. She didn't like things that go fast. And to me, that was a contradiction. Maybe not to some people, but it didn't quite align with me. Now here we are. So they start talking about how everything is going well. They're really vibing. They're really gelling. So they have this little box of questions that the experts have given them to go through. And one of the questions was, how would you feel if you caught me watching porn? This is what Steve said to Noi. How would you feel if you caught me watching porn? And Noi says, oh, I think I would be turned on by it. I didn't believe it. What Noi has demonstrated is she's insecure. I think if she saw Steve watching a bunch of naked women in a porn video, she would be insecure and she'd be like, well, why don't you look at me like that? Do you like those women more than you like me? I didn't believe that at all. I didn't think that that was a truthful answer. Later on, she starts talking about that they should have sex in sort of a semi-public place. And I kept thinking, you just said you don't even like the outdoors. So like, what's semi-public? And then she goes, anywhere but here in the apartment. Girl, that ain't semi-public. You talking about a hotel? That's not public. Public's in the beach, and the park, in the bathroom, on the airport, mile high people, in the back of a car with no tinted windows. That's the kind of stuff that would be adventurous. And Steve was like, yeah, I'm here for that if you want to do it. But even Steve called her on some of her little stretching. Another thing he started talking about was bathing in the shower. Let's bathe each other in the shower. And she started talking about, oh, why? You just want to do it clean? Girl, no. We talking about lathering you up. You ain't never seen them showery sex scenes to know what he's talking about. I think Noi plays like she doesn't know things. Just like she started talking about she didn't know what body shots were. And Steve was like, my wife knows what body shots are. She just doesn't want to admit it. That's what I'm thinking too. Just like on the honeymoon, when they started asking people who had cheated on other people and Noi didn't speak up, later found out that she had cheated on a boyfriend. Sure, it was a long time ago in high school, but the fact was she didn't admit it. Some of these things, Noi presents as one person, but I think she's a different person. So I'm not quite sure who Noi is now. They start talking about that they're really good with holding hands and hugging and cuddling, but they also started talking about Noi's inability to express herself at certain periods of time. And we remember the whole thing with the noodles and how she ran out. Well, this is the part that I found interesting in this episode. What she said was in her past relationships, she's been quick on that tongue. She's let that tongue rip, and she's done some destruction with that tongue. Now, we haven't seen that with Noi. So what she's told us is that, one of her coping mechanisms was to walk out the room with the noodle situation because she didn't want to say something that she regrets. And I understand that, Noi, because I'm the same type of person. I put myself in a timeout because I don't want to run off at the mouth in front of my husband. And you know what I had to learn as a married woman? They used to tell people, don't go to bed angry. That don't work for me and my husband. I go to bed angry because I am actually a person who can get over things pretty quickly, but I do need my cooling off period. And sometimes that cooling off period is a restful sleep or go take a nap. I put myself in timeout all the time. I go take myself a nap. Then later on, I can come back and have a conversation level-headed without full of emotion. And let me tell you, my husband prefers that way more than me screaming or yelling or getting angry. He says, you know what? He prefers me going to bed. So we go to bed, don't go to bed angry. That don't work for everybody. For me and my marriage, if I'm upset, I take my ass to bed. But Steve says, when Noi is quiet, he doesn't know how to help. And I know men like to fix stuff. And, so Noi does have to get better at that. It's nothing wrong with taking the time out, but then you do have to come back and be able to have a good conversation about it. And I'm not for sure if Noi has that part of it where she goes away, but then she never comes back and talks about it. You know, I used to talk about how Noi cried all the time. So I think she does have a problem regulating her emotions a little bit. But when she opened up about this episode, when she really started talking about this thing about Steve not wanting to work, and Steve started talking about, well, this house is cleaned, you know, the dinner is ready, you have a good dinner, and if I have to go to work, you're not going to get all that. What is Steve talking about? He trying to be a house husband? Maybe he need to go marry Elijah because he's speaking Elijah's language. But Noi was like, that ain't what I bargained for. That sounds like an excuse. We both can clean this house. She said she ain't looking to come home to no clean house and dinner cook. She's looking to come home to an alert on her phone saying there was a direct deposit from a job you've been working at. You know what? That's what she wants more, a direct deposit, not your cooking and cleaning. So if you want to elevate cooking and cleaning, you might want to go with Elijah if you want to get a lot of credit for that. And Dr. Vince stepped in and said, hey, you know what? If you guys had enough savings and there was enough savings and you weren't hurting financially, would you be upset with Steve being sort of a house husband or being the primary caretaker of the kids? And Noi was like, I don't like that. Because that's the role Noi wants. Here's the part. Noi don't want to be the one working and Steve gets to stay at home taking care of the kids. So I don't know what these two are going to do. It's starting to really, and each time, you know what, they just cut the conversation. They don't seem to work through it. And later on, when they start talking about their problems, Steve was saying, you know what, I'm not sure my wife is going to be able to accept the life I want to live. And I used to think these two were a sure shot, but I am getting a little nervous about them. And one of my subscribers in my comments, she's been warning me about it all season long. And I've been saying, they're solid, they solid, they solid. But you know who you are, girlfriend out there. But you know what? I'm starting to see what you're talking about. I'm starting to see that I'm not sure Steve is going to be able to meet Noi halfway in the middle. It seems like Steve is still stuck on this is the life he wants and he's not moving. I thought Steve had shared some information with Noi about the fact that he had a lot of money saved. And so maybe she wasn't so worried about it. But I'm starting to realize that it's just not about the money being saved. Noi doesn't want that role at all. She doesn't want to see her husband sitting at home, even if he got $1 million in the bank and she's got to go to work. She doesn't like the optics of it. She doesn't like that. So it's going to be a bigger problem than Steve having money in the bank. And it sounds like Noi is not even comfortable with this whole entrepreneurial thing. Noi wants a 9-to-5 guy, and Steve is saying, I'm not a 9-to-5 guy. So Noi has a couple of things to work through. She has this image, this rigid image of things, and she wants Steve to be in that rigid image box of a 9-to-5 corporate job. And he's saying it's really not about the money he's making, but I'm not going to get put back into that box. And Noi is going to have to come off of that. I'm starting to see that Noi has a lot more rigidness than she originally let on. She tried to act like she was a free spirit, but she really isn't a free spirit. Not at all. They wrote down all these sort of fears they have, and they were supposed to burn them. But in the end, the ones they told each other that were their real fears did end up being the fears they talked about off camera. That was what was crazy about it. They said one fear in front of each other, and then off camera, they came up with a wholly different fear. So they were so fearful, they didn't even tell each other the real fear. Noi and Steve aren't having some real tough conversation that they need to have. They might be this type of couple where on the surface they're looking good, but they're not having the deep dive conversations that they need to have. I thought they were, because they say they talk 3 hours after the cameras leave, but I'm not sure what they're talking about. I hope they're not tiptoeing around each other's feelings just not to upset each other. But anyway, I'm not going to sound the alarm too much right now. I hope they can work it out, but I am starting to see a little bit of crack in the veil. That's it, y'all. Talk to you later. Bye.